King Butisa II, Kabaka of Buganda, is in London to fight the government's decision to exile him from the little province that is part of the Uganda Protectorate.
You possibly learned about the Buganda Kingdom or heard of one autonomous kingdom in the southern part of Uganda, which was one of the strongest indigenous formations in the pre-colonized Africa, the kingdom headed by Kabaka. Buganda Kingdom, founded in 14th century, other sources say 13th century, which is all about 700 years ago.
My country is small but under the protection of the British government, I feel that I can claim that its development has been exceptionally rapid. I'm very glad to see you in my country and hope that the pictures which you are taking will be of interest to those who see them.
The kingdom was one of the well-organized, powerful, and vastly popular in the eastern part of Africa. That during independence, the king of Buganda assumed the president of the nation as president of Uganda. And 5 years later, in 1967, the kingdom was destabilized, the king exiled, and chiefs detained. This is the fall of Buganda Kingdom in the 1960s. To understand the history behind Buganda Kingdom, first, a man who is recorded in journals to be a ruthless soldier, a recruit of King's African Rifles, Idi Amin Dada, Milton Obote, and the king of Buganda, Edward Mutesa II, come into play. Uganda got its independence in the early 1960s from the British. Consequently, powers were transferred to the Ugandans. First, the king of Buganda, Edward Mutesa II, assumed the presidency, with Milton Obote as the prime minister.
Now across to the East African Protectorate of Uganda, the bishop waits upon the steps, and His Excellency the Governor arrives at the cathedral. Apparently a big occasion, and so it is, the coming of age of His Highness the Kabaka Mutesa. He is a Christian king. He succeeded his father in 1939, which you'll agree...
If the records are right, Obote and Mutesa were age mates. Obote born in 1925, Mutesa born in 1924, roughly 38 and 39 years by the time they presumed power.
Banyoro and Baganda tribesmen shouted freedom.
Tension started when Bunyoro Kingdom demanded their territories which Buganda had taken.
Uganda on January 22, 1962 to listen to evidence which will help them to reach a settlement of the 70-year-old lost counties dispute between the Kingdom of Bunyoro and the Kingdom of Buganda.
Buganda defaulted the decree and instead started to push for the counties to be recognized fully under the Buganda Kingdom. The refusal to surrender these territories of Bungakaizi and Buyaga to Bunyoro Kingdom intensified politics.
Guns were fired and stones thrown during a riot in Kampala, the Uganda capital, on Friday, November 6, 1964. 3 people were killed and 20 injured. The disturbances followed the announcement of the result of a referendum. Unrest flared when it was announced that 2 counties in Buganda, a kingdom within Uganda, had voted overwhelmingly to rejoin the neighboring kingdom of Bunyoro, from which they were annexed by the British 70 years ago.
President Mutesa was keen to retain part of his kingdom, and Prime Minister Obote advocated for the return of the 2 territories to the Bunyoro Kingdom. By November of 1964, Obote had widely persuaded the population of the 2 territories and voted in the referendum to return under the Bunyoro Kingdom, and so Mutesa lost. This sparked a political rivalry between Obote and Mutesa. The loss of the countries did not sit well with Mutesa, who was the king of Buganda before being elevated as president of Uganda. So he hatched a plan to control Obote. And perhaps by coincidence, Milton Obote and his close counterpart, Colonel Idi Amin Dada, were alleged to have been involved in a scandalous gold deal. Idi Amin was a ranking army officer in Uganda, while Milton Obote was mandated with oversight of security services and army forces in Uganda. The two were reported to be supporting an armed rebellion in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC,
aimed at bringing peace to the region.
And as an appreciation for their support, they received minerals and other goods from the Congo rebels. Although it cannot be concluded that the government of Uganda supported the rebellion in the DR Congo, the Obote-led faction was highly linked with the rebellion. By the end of 1964, it was clear that Mutesa and Obote had developed different political interests, and each of them was passionate about developing their support bases across Uganda. So when Idi Amin and Obote were directly linked with the corruption allegations, the politicians allied to President Mutesa got a rare chance in politics to legally destabilize the Obote-led wing. They formed a parliamentary committee to look into the scandal and to publish a report on the investigation. The whistleblower accused Idi Amin of having opened an account with the bank and depositing within 24 days amount of 17,000 sterlings, equivalent to 350,000 sterlings in 2021. This raised suspicion of where he got that big amount of money in a short span. While Milton Obote was on international travel, the parliament consented that Idi Amin be examined and the sources of that huge amount be known to the public. As a consequence, Idi Amin was given a short leave to pave way for his interrogation by the committee. Something was amazing here. Idi Amin was in the army ranks, while Obote was tasked to oversee the army. So by subjecting Idi Amin to interrogation, then the big fish in the ordeal had to chip in, and Obote was the one. So, when Obote returned from overseas, he moved faster, and while the cabinet convened to formulate another commission of inquiry into the possible corruption, Obote lured the special forces responsible for the security of the government officials and managed to arrest 5 members of the cabinet. With other government officials fearing arrest by the Obote wing, some fled out of Uganda. The Vice President, William Nadiope, fled to Kenya. What immediately followed was strategic changes in the army wing. Idi Amin was made Chief of Army and Air Force Staff, and another loyal soldier, Opolot, was promoted to the position of Chief of Defense Staff. The following day, the 24th February 1966, Obote suspended Mutesa from presidential mandates. Obote argued that Mutesa had reacted inappropriately to the Buganda lost countries to the Buganda Kingdom, ordering troops movement without ministerial consultation and seeking foreign military backing. On the other hand, Mutesa protested the action of Obote and was determined to outsourcing support from foreign nations, including the United Nations, to help tame Obote. With the political and military stalemate between Obote and Mutesa, just in a few months later, Obote will convene a meeting attended by a few army officials. The aftermath of the meeting was a military intervention to depose President Mutesa. Milton Obote, who was mandated to oversee the army, fitted Idi Amin with arms, ordering him to launch an attack on Mutesa's palace. Facing little resistance from the people, particularly by the Baganda, Idi Amin's forces successfully surrounded the Mutesa's palace in a few days. The presidential guards upheld their loyalty by holding back the Idi forces and planning an escape for the cornered Mutesa. Mutesa moved over the palace wall and managed to escape and sought refuge in Burundi and later to the United Kingdom.
King Butisa II, Kabaka of Buganda, is in London to fight the government's decision to exile him from the little province that is part of the Uganda Protectorate. The King's insistence that Uganda should be an independent state, says Colonial Secretary Oliver Littleton, violates an agreement signed by the Kabaka, who is now the centre of a parliamentary controversy.
The chiefs of the Buganda Kingdom were detained, and powerful people allied to the ousted Mutesa were also detained. The palace was raided, looted, and destroyed by the army. The Buganda Kingdom was brought down, ending the Indigenous Organization formed in the early 13th century.
Under the protection of the British government, I feel that I can claim that its development has been exceptionally rapid. I'm very glad to see you.
Today, the Buganda play a significant role in the general politics of Uganda, and they are still recognized within Uganda. The Buganda Kingdom was restored in 1993 and is currently headed by Kabaka.
I live with it quite happily. I mean,
Muwenda Mutebitu.
We're talking about what you say, that I've lost my monarchy. I believe that it's a question of priorities. I mean, the monarchy was taken away, and it's a question of putting it back to the electorate, whether they want that kind of institution reinstituted back or not.
This has been a story for Opio World. Till next week, I am Opio Wino.